Hi, welcome to IELTS Cast episode 43. I just got off the phone with Noah, who is an IELTS success story from Vietnam originally, but he's been living and working in Australia for the past 5 years in Sydney. Noah is inspiring. His story is inspiring for several different reasons. So now that his IELTS is behind him, he's that much closer to the Australian PR that he's been after all of these years. He's also done his undergraduate and graduate degrees in Australia, which of course also wins him points towards his goal. And he's got a number of really interesting strategies and approaches to IELTS that I think you will find not only helpful, but just generally motivating. He's a hardworking individual and a very articulate guy. One thing that I'd like to highlight about Noah's experience with the IELTS is that he had his success in an English-speaking country after having two disappointing IELTS experiences in his home country of Vietnam. And I think that is just a little bit of evidence to help dispel some of the rumors that you see online about people that think that there is some conspiracy around the IELTS or that it's a political tool to keep people out of Australia. But that's not the case at all. And I think Noah's experience highlights that. And he touches upon this in the interview. So it's something that I think is important to remember. So this interview is kind of special because for the first time ever, I approached somebody that had left a comment on a YouTube video of mine. And so I emailed Noah and got a bit of background on his story, and that's how the whole thing kind of grew. It just germinated from this little comment on a YouTube video. So if you are a person that has scored well on the exam, preferably band 8 or above, I would really like to talk to you, and I think the audience that listens to the show would really appreciate hearing your insight because you have done what many people around the world want to do. And even if your insight is maybe a bit of a repeat of what you've heard on the show before, it's motivating to hear people that have done it before, that have scored band 8. So I hope you'll get in touch with me. My email is, and has always been, ryan@ielts.com. And I answer all email that comes into that email address. So just shoot me an email and let's arrange something. Let's get you on this show and have you share what you know about the exam. Okay, I'm going to flip and be a little salesy for a moment. Please leave 5 stars for this show on iTunes or leave the show a thumbs up on Stitcher or whatever positive feedback method that is available to you that you can exercise on whatever podcast aggregator you're using, whatever podcast player you're using. That would really be appreciated. And aside from that, it looks as though many of you are keeping the examiners that are on IELTSnetwork.com busy. I see that they're providing you with a lot of feedback. Elle Moore, user Elle Moore, who's not an examiner, but she's a professional IELTS speaking coach, has also been quite busy the past month. And I'm glad that some of you are taking advantage of those resources because they're completely free. They will always be completely free. And you can get some personal feedback on things like your speaking and your writing, which is something you can't do in a practice exam that you're writing in your bedroom by yourself, right? So get on that computer, get over to IELTSnetwork.com, post your speaking sample, post your writing sample, start getting some real feedback. And if you do have a smartphone, as most people do these days, you should plug into the WhatsApp groups that are opening up on IELTSnetwork.com. They're a great way to get in touch with other people that are taking the exam, maybe even taking the exam the same day you are. So lots going on. Come on over to IELTSnetwork.com and plug yourself into the resources that are available there. Okay, good luck everyone with your studies and enjoy this conversation. Today I'm speaking with Noah, an IELTS candidate from Vietnam originally, currently living and working in Sydney, Australia, and pursuing Australian PR. Noah scored a very impressive overall 7.5 on his IELTS. He scored 8.5 in listening, 7 in reading, 7 in writing, and 7.5 in speaking, which puts him above the band 7 threshold and allows him to apply at that level and move his application for PR forward. Noah is here today and he's going to share with us some of the strategies that he followed that allowed him to score so well on the examination. Hi Noah, thanks for sharing the time today.
Hi Ryan, it's my pleasure to talk to you today.
Noah, let's start with talking about your pursuit of Australian permanent residency. Can you just give us the timeline and the story behind that?
Okay, well, I have been in Sydney, Australia for almost 5 years, and I went to Macquarie University, and I studied finance and economics there. And after that, I studied a master degree in accounting, and I finished. And then I went to the IELTS test and also finished. So anyway, that is the process. So in order to get the permanent resident, you need to accumulate, I think, 70 points now. So if you went to the university and study in Sydney, in Australia for more than 3 years, you got, I think, 20 points. And then a master degree, another 10, IELTS, another 10 points. So, I'm accumulating points. I think right now I'm 55 or 60. I still need 10 more points in order to get the permanent resident.
Oh, okay. And if you don't mind me asking, so how will you get those 10 points? What's your plan there?
I think that I have to find a job in accountancy, and then I worked for maybe 1 or 2 years, and I got the experience point, I think, which is 10 points.
I see.
Or I have to find a partner, which study in nursing or engineering, and then we put our file together, and that called partnership, and then I can get 5 points or 10.
I see. Interesting. So I think a lot of the people listening, or many of the people listening, are in the same position that you are. They're planning on pursuing Australian permanent residency. What's your opinion of Sydney? Do you like it?
Well, for me, yes, I think so, because I have lived in Sydney, Australia for 5 years, and I worked here, I studied here. I started to enjoy the lifestyle in here. Compared to my country, is completely different. Although my parents, they want to stay in my country because they have all my friends and their family member there. But for me, I really want to stay here and have my future in here, which I think that is really beneficial for my children, in the future, and also for my parents. Yeah.
Now, Noah,
course, yes.
I want to talk about, before we get to talking about the IELTS specifically, if we could just finish this, very brief profile that we're creating of you. What percentage of your day would you say you engage in English, and what percentage would you engage in your native Vietnamese?
Oh, okay. To tell you the exact percentage is maybe a little bit difficult, but I try to expose myself to English as much as I could. Well, I have a job. I working in the Sydney Tower Buffet, so I talking English with all my workmates. When I go back home, I watch news and movies in English. But I living with my Vietnamese folks in my apartment. So, I think it's a balance between English and my Vietnamese.
Okay, great. So let's get to talking about this IELTS success that you recently had. So just to put everybody in the picture, you took the exam in January, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Noah, was this your first attempt at the IELTS?
No, actually, I have taken the IELTS 3 times. The first time 4 years ago when I first came to Australia. No, actually, before I came to Australia, I took once in my city, Hanoi, and I got a band 6. And then last year, when I was in Hanoi, I took the IELTS again and I got 7. But I got 6.5 in writing and speaking. So last month, I took it again and I got the band score that I desired.
So let's talk about the skills in particular. Let's talk about the skills one by one. So you scored 8.5 in listening. How does that compare to the listening scores that you received in the previous 2 attempts?
Oh, the first time I got 6 for listening, I remember. And last year, I got 7.5. And this time I got 8.5, so I was really surprised by the result.
I see. So would you say, though, that your listening skill has improved that much over the course of 4 years, going from 6 to 8.5? Do you feel as though, I mean, it's a very, very big difference if you yourself compare it to 4 years ago?
Yes, indeed. I have to say, yeah. Now I can listen to people, I can listen to the news, and I can watch television without subtitle comfortably.
Okay, great.
Compared to 4 years ago, I was struggling.
I think it's helpful to just to talk about this for a second, because other people that are listening, maybe these people haven't taken the IELTS yet, but it can help them a little bit kind of gauge where they are skill-wise. Maybe they're somewhere similar to where you were 4 years ago, where they're listening to movies, they're listening to news, and there's a lot of it they can't get. But you're saying that now at the 8.5 level, the majority of it you're understanding.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't you talk about that skill and how were you practicing? What were the major things you were doing to make sure you scored well?
To be honest with the IELTS listening, I have practiced many tests. That is my strategy for the IELTS. I remember that I watched the episode 20 of you and the guy named Sean from China. Episode 20, I remember. And then he said that his strategy was to practice again and again, many times. So I listened to him and I did the same. I practiced with many IELTS listening material. And that's how I got the score 8.5. Well, although when I was practicing, I only get about 7.5. But when it come to the real test, I got 8.5. It was quite surprised. But I will stay at 8, I think.
And where were you getting the practice tests from?
I got all the material from the internet. Just basically just type in IELTS material listening, and then you can download unlimited material. So I just practicing every day, every morning actually, for the last 6 months.
And were there any specific strategies that you found helped you to enhance your score?
Listening. Well, I think there are several reasons to enhance my listening. Apart from practicing with the IELTS materials, I enjoy watching movies. And especially I enjoy watching speeches from famous people, like the Mr. President of the USA, Barack Obama, or the TED Talk. I download most of the talk into my phone, and I listen every time that I can have a chance, on the bus, on the trains, wherever I'm waiting in the queue or anything like that. I just taking advantage of that time and listen to all of that audio again and again.
And with reference to the test itself in particular, are there any testing strategies that you would say truly enhanced your score?
Well, I think that it can only be one way for the listening, and the quickest way actually is to practice with the material, like the Cambridge 1 to 10. Now it's a 10. So you just listen to it, and then for the first time, try to get as much as the correct answer as you could, and then listen again. And listen until you can get to the 9, and then do it many times. Just practice every day. I think so. That's the only way. There's no the other way.
Yeah, but I mean,
and also for listening, there is one thing is that you have to use the time efficiently. By that I mean that when you come to the question, you need to, like for example, for the first part, for the session 1, but you need to go to the second session, and the third and the fourth, like ahead of it, like just reading the question ahead.
Yeah, that seems
Something
to be
like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's becoming best practice. Most people that I talk to that score 8.5 or 9, they are doing that. So I hope people listening to this don't think that they keep hearing the same thing from me, but yeah, I think that's a great strategy to follow. Is that the time that you're given before the questions, or in the time you're given to preview the section 1 or section 2, you should be reading ahead to sections 3 and 4, which are more difficult.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need to prepare like mentally.
Now, why don't we move on to your reading score? You scored band 7, which is good. And how does that compare to the scores that you received in the first 2 attempts at the exam?
Well, when it's come to reading, it's really funny. The 4 years ago, I got 5.5, but 4 years ago was long time. And at the time, my English level was very low. But last year, I got 7.5 for my reading. But last year, I didn't practice at all. But this time, last month, I got only 7. So when it's come to reading, I'm not really sure what is the best strategy to do it, because last year I didn't practice. I went to the test and I got 7.5, which I believe that is on luck, pure luck. But last month, I have put a lot of practice for reading, just like listening, but I got only 7. And when I practicing reading, I always get 30 questions correct. It's always like that, always 10 wrong. I think the people who create the test has some sort of strategies or psychology tricks or something,
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still like looking to improve my reading, but it seems like practicing with the IELTS material doesn't help.
If we talk about the general readings in particular, what kind of text were they? Were they advertisements or academic texts, or what were they? Sometimes the general readings can be varied a little bit.
General reading. I took the academic one.
Oh, you took the academic. Oh, I thought you took the general.
Yeah. I took the academic. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I know, because you said you were pursuing Australian PR, so I just assumed you were taking general. So you took academic. Okay.
Yeah, it's academic.
Okay, and then with regards to specific strategies that you followed when engaging the reading exam, is there anything you can share there?
Oh, reading. I think the order is very important. So there are several types of questions in IELTS reading: heading, filling the gaps, author names, and some other types of questions. So for each type of question, we need to have a specific type of answer. So for example, for heading, we should always do the heading last, because by the time that you read all the text, you're probably guessing the main point of each paragraph. So there's no point to do the heading first, I think. And filling the gaps is probably the most easy part, so we can do it first.
Yeah, that's good strategy.
And also, yeah, probably.
Sorry, you were going to say and also?
And also scanning and skimming are the two important techniques when it comes to reading. We need to master it when we practice, so that when it comes to the real test, we don't feel, we should feel confident when we come to the real test.
Yeah, that's very good advice. Yeah, I know what you mean about the headings question type, which, as you said, should be kept to the end, because after you've already read through the text to look for the answers for the other questions, well, you have a pretty good feeling about what the different sections of the text are referring to and discussing and talking about, and then it becomes much easier for you much easier for the candidate to match the headings to the paragraphs they belong to.
That's right. Yeah. But the headings can be also very tricky sometimes. I mean, even though we do it last, but that doesn't mean that we can only spend a short, few minutes to do it. We still need to do it, in a good amount of time, because sometimes it can be very close, the answer to the right questions. Yeah.
Now let's talk about your writing performance. You scored band 7. How does that compare to the earlier 2 attempts?
oh, that was so much better.
Really?
Yeah, I got 6.5 last year,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the only reason that I got 6.5 is because I took it in my country. So, I think there is a reputation that taking the IELTS in Hanoi is easier compared to other places. So that's I got 6.5. But writing is actually the skill that I have put a lot of efforts to it. And yeah, so I got 7. I really over the moon with only 0.5, but it is really hard work and a lot of effort.
Yeah, and for
For
you,
me.
yeah, and for you, it makes all the difference because that's the level that you absolutely have to be able to win points towards your PR.
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's great. Is there anything you'd like to share about the writing, the performance that you've had this past month?
For writing, for me, I actually attend to private tutor with the ex-examiner, ex-IELTS examiner. And I started with her for maybe 10 sessions. So mainly, I wrote task 1 and task 2, and then I gave it to her, and then she corrected for me. And it turned out that all 95% of my problem is simple mistake like grammars or singular and plural. So it was really surprised because I thought that it's other problem, but it's come down to the basic English problem like subject verb agreement, singular or plural form, and correct all of that for me. And I kept writing and writing every week. Then after 3 or 4 months, I feel confident to achieve a band 7, and I went and I achieved it.
That's great. Yeah, yeah. No, I was just going to say that I think that your story is pretty common. People getting to band 6 or 6.5 in writing, and they just can't cross that band 7 threshold, and they just can't figure it out. What is it? Is it structure? Is it the way I'm interpreting the essay question? But often it does fall into the category of basic grammar. The candidate has some bad habits that they're not aware of, and they think that they're writing grammatically accurate sentences when every single sentence has a bunch of really simple errors. And it is a bit of a domino effect because when the grammar or the lexical choices are weak, this, of course, it will impact things like the ability of the sentences to work together, so the cohesion level. And when that breaks down, I mean, then you have problems with coherence. So maybe the examiner doesn't fully understand what the candidate's trying to say, which of course impacts the overall task achievement. So it's a bit of a domino effect. So I mean, I think your experience shows that if candidates just take that step and get a tutor or get somebody to tell you in particular exactly where you're going wrong, what little mistakes you're making, and when you tweak that area, it's surprising what does happen and what marks do come as a result of fixing those areas.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you do need a person.
Yeah.
To correct you. You can't do it by yourself with writing and speaking.
Right.
That is the two skills you can't do by yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So then let's move on to the speaking. So you scored 7.5, which is very impressive. And how does that compare to the earlier 2 attempts?
When it comes to speaking, I always very confident with my speaking. But last year I got 6.5. So I was quite surprised. But after sat down and actually think about it, I think that it's because I was very nervous at the time. So I spoke very fast. And when I spoke very fast, I tended to ignore all the important part of the question. I didn't expand my answer fully. So that's why I got 6.5. But last month, I was very confident. I was calm and I breathing right, And when it comes to the test, I was relaxed. and it's 6.5 to 7. Of course, when I was practicing, I record my voice a lot, and I listen to it again and again, and then I gave it to other people, to other speaker friends, to listen to it and ask them for feedback about my intonation, my pronunciation, all of that thing. I record my voice and give to other people. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it broke up a little bit there. So I'll just repeat your point. But you were saying that you were recording your voice a lot, asking your friends who are native English users in Australia to give you feedback. And with this feedback, you were able to hone those maybe various weaknesses within your speaking and improve your overall ability to communicate a message. And you say that this was the foundation for your confidence in this past exam. So let's talk then about the experience itself. Tell us about the speaking exam. What sort of questions did you get? How did you engage them? How was the examiner? All of these things. Tell us what the experience was like.
Okay. I remember the question for me in the speaking test was describe a time when I was regret doing something. I can't remember what I said, but like Sean said, it's not about what you say, but it's about how you say it. So I was relaxed and I was, saying something that is very simple. Very simple. I didn't use any fancy words or complex sentence structure or anything. But it seemed like the examiner, he understood me very well. And that's how I got a good band score. So we just, speaking in simple terms, clearly and direct to the question. Nothing fancy and relaxed. I think it's all about the handling stress, because when students are nervous, they started to make mistake and error problems with speaking.
Yeah, I agree. So how would you calm yourself down mentally? What sort of, is there an exercise or any sort of practice that you can put into place that helps to just clear your mind and calm you down?
I think the only one technique that I use is breathing. Breathing, exhale and inhale, just very regularly. Inhale for 3 seconds and then exhale. And I was sitting there waiting for my test, very relaxing by breathing, just like that, and clear my mind and calm when it comes to the test. And then, and also there is one thing that I should mention here is body language, because I read somewhere that 80% of what you're saying is through your body language. So sometimes, like simple thing like the way you sit and how you move your hand, all that will affect your speaking, because IELTS speaking to me is like an interview. So if you got a good impression, examiner, definitely you got more score. That's what I always think. And when it comes to the exam, I was, using my hand and, like really helping with what I'm saying. I'm not pointing the finger, I use all my hand, if you know what I mean, just to make seem a little bit relaxed and confident, not nervous or anything. All of that thing of the IELTS speaking. I think this is, that's something that is new.
And how about the examiner? How about the examiner? What sort of person were they, and how did they make you feel?
The examiner?
Yeah.
Oh, the examiner was white. He's very young, about 26, 27. Good-looking guys. He made me feel really calm and relaxed already. Compared with the last year, I got quite a unpleasant examiners. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's all about me, how I calm myself and everything.
Right.
It's not about the examiner. Yeah.
Great.
That's what I think.
So to wrap up, then, you had this amazing overall 7.5. The IELTS is now behind you. What would you like to communicate to somebody that's in the same position that you were? They want to cross that Band 7 threshold, but they're struggling. They've taken the exam 2 or 3 times. What would you say to this person?
Oh, I think just keep believing. keep practicing every day, and you got to be confident that you can achieve it, and you will achieve it. I think through IELTS, I'm growing my internal confidence because, last year or 3 or 4 years ago, I was not confident. I couldn't speak English very well, and I didn't even think that I could ever using English fluently. But by practicing and always believe that I can achieve it. Although all my friends, they sometimes they say that you couldn't do it because many people have tried and they fail. So so do you. But I think that this is something that I can do, and I practicing consistently, and I achieve it. Now I feel really, yeah, I feel great.
Hmm.
So I hope that other students who, in same with my position 2 years ago, they could, do the same. They could always believe in and practicing. I'm practicing every morning for the last 4 months. So I think practicing is important. Believing is not enough. Believing and practicing will make a, great achievement.
I think that's very, very good advice. Well, on that note, Noah, I want to thank you for sharing these informative tips and for allowing everybody to tap into your knowledge. Congratulations on this great success, and I hope that Australian PR comes to you soon.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you very much.